The Fifth Amendment. We were playing our game last night at the hospitality thing. We had the wheel. You know, people would spin the dial, and it would come up on 5, and everybody would just go, oh. And everybody knows I have a right not to incriminate myself. I can keep my mouth shut. Well, that means that you've gotten all of your information about the Bill of Rights from Law and Order. You have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Yeah. That is not the Fifth Amendment. The Fifth Amendment is the largest, longest of the amendments, 187 words, and it's filled with lots and lots of good information. Fifth Amendment says, no person shall be held to answer for any capital or otherwise infamous crime. They can't put you in jail unless on presentment or indictment by a grand jury. We think that you've committed murder. I'm like 98% certain that you've committed murder. But can I put you in handcuffs? Can I take you to jail? Not yet. I need a grand jury indictment, or a presentment means we physically bring you in front of the grand jury, which I don't think that happens very much. It might. But if you watch Law and Order, frequently they'll have the corrupt businessman, and they come in and they're asking him about the murder, and you know, because you watched the very beginning part during the trailer, that the guy committed murder. So you know that he did, and the police officers think that he did, but they're there in the office and going, well, we think, you know, and he's going, yeah, you know, you got nothing. If you had anything, you'd be taking me off to jail right now, but you got nothing. And the police officer says, before I, die, I'm going to see you in jail, that kind of thing. And so you go through the movie and they're collecting the evidence, and they always do the DNA test, and 15 minutes later they get the results back, right? And they finally, at the end of the movie, they go in because now they have the grand jury indictment. And the guy is usually in front of a big business meeting about to, make a $1 million deal, and they walk in and they handcuff him and walk him out, and oh my gosh, it's all embarrassing. Why didn't they handcuff him at the beginning? Because there was no indictment. The grand jury is made of we the people. Before you can put somebody in jail, no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime until you go to the grand jury and you give the grand jury a sub-box of evidence. Doesn't prove that you're guilty. It doesn't prove that you did it, but it gives enough evidence where this is worth a trial. We're going to look into this. This is suspicious enough that we're going to pull people together and go in and do some more search warrants. So they can't hold you until that time. Now, is that for everybody? No. Unless on presentment or indictment by a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia when in actual time of war or public danger. If you're in the military, if you're a soldier or a sailor and you do something bad, do you go to court? Where do you go? Court-martial. Civilians and military are viewed differently. Military, we give you guns. We're training you how to kill people. And so the rules are going to be different. If you're a civilian, you have to have an indictment by the grand jury. If you're a sailor or a soldier or in the militia pretending to be a soldier, then we go and put you in a court-martial, which is all based under admiralty law. The Uniform Code of Military Justice. It's a different set of rules.
Is the military all the time and the militias only in time of war?
Yes.
Because we're all in the militia, so.
We are all in the militia, and the militia is only in time of war. Now, in my 8-hour class, I go into how long we're supposed to have the military. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 13 says that you can raise money for an army, but no appropriation for that use shall be for a term longer than 2 years. So that's just food for thought. You know, come and take my Constitution class and we'll talk about that some more. But the point is that you've got different rules of justice. So then the Fifth Amendment starts to get, you know, interesting. You are protected against double jeopardy. You cannot be held for the same crime twice. Once the court finds you innocent, we can't take you back for that same crime. Because if I could, let's say I accuse you, we go to court, and it costs you $10,000 to defend yourself. And the jury finds you innocent. And I'm just really frustrated. So I take you to court again. It takes you another $10,000 to defend yourself. And you're innocent, and I take you back, and you're innocent a third time, a fourth time, a fifth time. You're out $50,000. And you're still innocent. The whole idea is that we're going to do it right once. And then, you know, if, you know, you're not going to be able to be taken to court for that same crime. Now, if we take you to court accused of murdering George and you are innocent, that doesn't mean that you can go out and just arbitrarily kill people because you've already been tried of murder and no, we accused you of murdering George. You know, if somebody else accuses you of murdering Sam, we can take you to court for that. That's a different crime.
What about federal income taxes?
Well, we can get into that. That's the 16th Amendment, and we're only going up to 10.
Thanks, guys.
But I think it refers, it's the long way, to the Second Amendment. And also the Fourth Amendment. So the Fifth Amendment says that you can't do double jeopardy. Then we get to the statement that says, nor be compelled to be a witness against himself in any capital, I forget, there's a clause there we're talking about the capital crimes. But you don't have to, you may be guilty, you did it, but you don't have to help. You don't have to confess. Now, on all these television shows, where they say, you know, they read you your rights, that's the Miranda. They say that you're Mirandizing somebody, because in 1967, I think, there was this Mexican guy who confessed. And then they said, well, he didn't know that he didn't have to. And he got off. He was guilty. He did it. But they dropped the case because he didn't know. And so to prevent that from happening anymore, now we make sure that you know. We tell you that you have a right to remain silent. You know, just in case you didn't know. But if the government has to read you your rights, you haven't been studying hard enough. You need to have the Bill of Rights memorized. When I get stopped, no, you don't have to read me my rights. I know my rights much better than you do. And within usually half an hour, they know that. And suddenly they're very, very afraid. One that is very, very important. The Declaration of Independence says you have the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Pursuit of happiness is abstract. What is that? Well, the original clause said life, liberty, and property, because it's all about property. But as they were talking about it, Benjamin Franklin argued that you have a right to be in love, right? Can you put love in a bag? Can you give me like 5 pounds of love? No, it's an abstract. And so Benjamin Franklin changed the word property to pursuit of happiness. It's supposed to include property and then oh so much more. Unfortunately, I think it has confused the issue these days. But the Fifth Amendment goes back to life, liberty, and property. It says you cannot be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Now the question is, what is due process of law? We drag you in the court and the judge goes, guilty. Is that due process? If you get dragged into Admiralty Court and the judge says, you know, I'll tell you what the law is. Guilty. Is that due process? Well, due process, if you look at Article 3, Supreme Court has jurisdiction under common law, equity law, and admiralty law. Due process would include common law, and there are no common law courts available anymore. So it's almost impossible in today's day and age to get due process. But the amendment does say you cannot have your life or your liberty or your property taken away from you until we've had due process of law. So when I got pulled over, the police officers were planning to call a tow truck and impound my car. And so I told them, you're violating or about to violate my Fifth Amendment rights. No, sir, we would never violate your Fifth Amendment rights. I said, well, it sounds like it to me. You're going to deprive me of my property, and our conversation is not due process of law. And he goes, oh, and he started thinking about that. And I said, if you persist and impound my car anyway, I will file a lawsuit against you, and it's going to take me 6 or 12 months, but at the end of the year, I'm going to own your house and your car. Oh, don't get carried away, sir. And then they finally gave me my keys and, let me go on my way. So it really does help if you know the Bill of Rights, and it also helps if you have the courage to back it up with a little bit of, machismo there every once in a while. So, can't be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor can private property be taken for public use without just compensation. This is the clause that people point to. They said, see, the government has a right to eminent domain. No. Well, it says we can take private property for public use. But it says, but you can't do it without just compensation. Who decides just compensation? If I come into your store to buy something, do I look at it and go, I'll give you $1 for it? Maybe at a swap meet, but not at a store. There's a price on it. If you want it, that's the price you pay. This is my land. You want to build your freeway through it? Okay, I've got a price, but you're going to pay my price. You're not going to come along and condemn my property, and then when my property is, getting 10 cents on the dollar, come along and buy my property for 10 cents on the dollar. It's not going to happen. And it's not going to happen because I'm a strong Second Amendment supporter. I don't have that little Alamo wall around my property, but that kind of gets in the way when I'm shooting back.
Well, the real problem with this is they're talking about not as public use anymore, but public benefit.
Right.
Which is the whole...
Well, again, they keep changing the rules. I don't know how many of you have ever read Animal Farm. The animals have got the rules on the side of the barn, and it says, all animals are created equal, and then as it goes on, it says, but some are more equal than others. That's what we're doing. I mean, Animal Farm was fiction. This is the United States. The government is going, some people are more equal than others. Our shopping mall is more important than the fact that this land has been in your family for generations. Somebody else is going to be paying us more taxes than you're paying. And so this is, for the benefit of the government. The government has no intrinsic benefits. Why is the government here? The government is here for our benefit. And if it is not benefiting us, then we can alter or abolish it. They talk about, state interest. The state has no interest. Get your interest out of my property. Your job is to be here to protect my life, my liberty, and my private property. And you're not doing it. Most of what our government does is unconstitutional. I'm outraged. Another clause, I'm going to go to the Constitution itself. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution tells Congress all the things they are allowed to do. We've got this list of things, and we're going to let you, those are your privileges. What do you think Article 1, Section 9 does? Tells Congress what they can't do. Shouldn't be necessary. If these are all the things on, your doctor puts you on a diet, and you can have salad, you can have tofu, you can have those, wonderfully tasty rice cakes. Do you come home and add, German chocolate cake at the bottom? No, it wasn't on your menu. It wasn't on your diet. Well, we've given Congress a list of things they can do. Can they pencil in Social Security Administration? Can they add Department of Education just because, we want people to be smart? No, you can't add responsibilities to your list. We, the people, do that. Anything not in Section 8 that government is doing is by definition unconstitutional. Article 9 explicitly tells them things they cannot do. And one of the things they cannot do is they cannot use bills of attainder. Bill of attainder was a piece of paper that said, you have committed a crime, you committed murder or whatever, we're going to take you out and burn you at the stake. But you've got this farm, all this property around. So, according to ancient custom, that property was attainted. You committed the murder, and so all of this property is kind of like poisoned with that crime. And so the government would originally take your property. You don't get a chance to leave it to your children. Your children have just lost their inheritance because you had committed some heinous act. The Constitution explicitly forbids the government from using bill of attainder. It says the government is not allowed to come and just grab onto your property when you were guilty. So we're going to change the words to eminent domain, and now the government can take your property and you're not guilty? Does that make any logical sense to anybody here? The government is here to protect your property, not to take it. And I don't care if you call it eminent domain, bills of attainder, or a shopping mall. If I own it, you're not going to get it. I don't care what the Supreme Court says.